Shonna Slayton. I am the host, and my first guest would be Ashlee Willis, author of The Word Changers. Ashlee, would you like to tell us a little bit about your book?
Yes, it is. It's called The Word Changers. It's right here. I don't know if you can see it or not. um, it's basically about a young girl named Posey who she needs to kind of have an escape from a troubled home, and she finds that escape in books, as many of us do. And one day she actually finds a kind of a special book and ends up falling right into it. And when she's in it, she discovers this fairy tale world of characters and creatures, and they're actually kind of planning a rebellion against their plot and their author. So she kind of becomes a part of that and travels through the story and finds out that the story is kind of changing around her as she goes, and all kinds of details go into it. But she meets a lot of people and has adventures and learns a lot. So that's kind of the short version there. So
when I was telling my daughter about this, she goes, "Cool! Ask her how she got the idea." So that's really my first question: is how did you get the idea?
Yeah, well, I don't know how it is for most writers, but usually it kind of starts with something really small, and it just kind of goes from there. You know, your imagination can go crazy, and this idea started when I was really a child myself. I was probably like 10, and it started in my own local library, and kind of just with the wish that I could kind of go in and visit some of the stories that were my favorites. And I didn't think about it for a lot of years, and then within the last few years I kind of started thinking about it again and thought, you know, I could probably make a book about that. So, and it started fairly simple, but I mean, ideas start coming in and you start outlining and things change, and yeah, just kind of went from there. So,
do you remember what year you kind of started it all? First draft and all that?
It's been a while actually, because there was maybe 5 years ago is when I started it, and I wrote the first few chapters, and then I just put it aside for a year or two and didn't even pick it up again. So, and then I finished it when my son started going to kindergarten. He was gone, you know, every day of the week, so I had plenty of time, and I picked it up again and started working on it. So, yeah, it was kind of, it wasn't one process. It was, I stopped and started again, and yeah, but it's probably 4 or 5 years ago is when I first started the first draft. So
mine took a long time too, so I'm happy to, you know, when I hear other authors, it took them a while too.
Yeah. Yeah, I am too.
When you're a mom, you kind of have to work around everyone else's schedule.
Right. Yeah, definitely.
That leads me to my next question for you. Your story is an allegory. Now, to me, that sounds like really daunting to write. How did you keep everything straight and all the symbolism?
Right. Well, I'm really a big planner and outliner, and I don't know how the authors do it when they just kind of fly by the seat of their pants, because there's no way I could ever do that. I feel like I need to have everything organized. So, I mean, it did start as kind of, I didn't really have the idea for the allegory until I'd already started writing it, and I kind of had everything outlined allegory-wise in my original outline before I even started writing the first chapter of the book. And that helps me a lot. I usually try to do that in as much detail as I can. I know, you know, some writers think that's a little confining, but for me that really works. So that's the biggest thing I can tell you as far as keeping it under control. I didn't have, you know, lists and charts and, you know, things like that, but yeah, just a pretty detailed outline was how I kept track of most of it.
That's good. Now, your book's been out 2 weeks, 1 week? How long has it been out?
Since the 23rd, so just over a week, about a week and a half, yeah.
Well, this is still your debut. You're still kind of flying that high. How have you spent the week? Did you do anything to celebrate yet, or are you just too busy?
On release day, which was a Monday, I had some family and friends actually come down. It was kind of last minute. They came to visit and took me out to dinner, and we just kind of spent the day. And it was actually kind of a good thing, because it got my mind off of, I feel like that's all I've been thinking about lately is just the book and marketing, and it was a really good break to have that. So that was the only celebration I've done so far, but it was nice.
Yeah, it is kind of crazy and busy, and you do get sort of this tunnel vision, like the book, the book, the book, the book.
Yeah.
And my book's been out for a month now, so I haven't done anything to celebrate. It's been so busy, but maybe in the future we'll take a time just to, quietly think about what a cool thing just happened.
Right. Yeah, you definitely need to.
So I forgot to ask you, I'm calling this Coffee with Authors, and here is my coffee. What are you drinking? Do you have anything?
Yeah. Here's mine. It's green tea. I'm not really into coffee, but I love tea, so.
Well, I have to confess, this is actually chai tea, because it's still in the afternoon, so,
Right.
Now, my last question for you is, I was on your blog yesterday, and I noticed that you have these cool pictures that you have, you went out into the forest, I don't know, maybe your backyard, and you painted fairy houses on trees. I love that. Do you do this randomly?
Yes, pretty randomly. That was actually the first time that I've ever done that, and I had to post it because it was so fun for me to do. But and yes, you're right. It's out in a random forest somewhere because my husband and my son and I like to take walks out in the woods, and we'd passed those trees a few times, and I mentioned those would be perfect little, my son's always looking for gnome homes anyway when we go walking. So yeah, one time I just decided to go for it and take my paints out there, and a few rains will probably wash it all away, but but it was fun while it lasted.
Well, I think it is so cool. You need to do it like everywhere you go, because that would be so much fun.
Yeah, I would love to.
Could you imagine when you're a child and you're just walking and you see something like that? Your imagination would just explode.
Yeah, it is pretty cool. I would like to do that, but I don't know how my neighbors would feel about me sneaking into their yard. I've been tempted.
They would never know unless they watch this video. So.
Right, yeah.
Okay, well, that's all the questions I had for you. Did you have any?
Okay. Oh, yes, definitely. Yeah. I was wondering about, I was reading some of your reviews for Cinderella's dress, and I noticed like almost everybody has something to say about your beautiful cover, and it is beautiful. And and I wondered, I know with my process, I know it's different from publisher to publisher, but I didn't really have hardly any say in what my cover ended up looking like, and I'm curious to know how much input you had into creating that. Did you have any influence?
I actually had a little bit. How mine worked out, I had not yet signed the contract, and they were working behind the scenes because they had to get the cover into the Macmillan catalog so it could be sold to the bookstores. And so by the time it was getting kind of crunch time, and so they normally ask what the author kind of envisions for the cover. But when they came to me, they said, "So here's your cover." And I said, "That's great, except the girl that was here, it was a different girl. And her dress was not very Cinderella-like. It wasn't so poofy and beautiful. So I suggested, could we maybe get a different picture right here?" So everything else was the same. I think Cinderella was a little smaller in font. And so the story behind the actual dress, it was on, I had a whole bunch of pictures of dresses that I've gathered over the years. And my editor tracked down one to the website DeviantArt. And the photographer of this girl, it's her daughter, right here, I think in the UK is where they live. So I thought that was a kind of a neat story. So it was really quick. They had the cover, but we swapped out the dress like within 2 days, and then it was off into the catalog.
Oh, wow. Okay. Well, that's neat. I do love that cover, I have to say.
It's definitely getting a lot of buzz out there, which is fantastic.
Yeah.
That's what you want, right?
Yeah. Well, I know that your book also took place in the World War II era. Is that right? Mm-hmm. What was it that made you decide to do that? That's kind of interesting, actually, for fairy tale retelling.
Yeah, it was one of the story sparks that started the whole thing. I was writing a historical fairy tale set in the 1930s, and I was doing some research. I'm looking over here because I wrote the quote down on the back of a book so I wouldn't forget it.
Okay.
But I was researching for my character for the 1930s story. I needed to know about stores. I don't know what stores were like in the 1930s. And I read this quote from Jan Whitaker in a book called Service and Style. Until the personnel shortage of World War II, department store window display staff were all male. And I thought, why were they all male? That's so strange. How hard could it be to swap out the windows? And so I had, just coming off of that quote, and then the second story spark of the Cinderella dress not disappearing at midnight kind of merged together and then came together, and I thought, you know what, I really want to write a story about this transition period in World War II that I'd never heard about, because I thought was interesting.
Right.
And how was I going to make that happen? So that for me, that was the challenge, is how do I get, somehow I wanted to get Cinderella's dress into a department store window. That was kind of my goal. I don't know why, but that was my goal.
Right. Yeah, it's one of those things. It starts kind of small and goes from there. That's cool to know. Huh.
So it was random.
Yeah. So do you kind of like fairy tales in general? Like, would you have possibly more retellings that you would do, or was that kind of a one-time thing?
I love fairy tale retellings. I think right now is such a neat time to be a reader of fairy tale retellings because there are so many.
Oh, yeah.
You know, it's just kind of exploding, and that's exciting. I have the one from the 1930s that I was working on. That's a middle grade. And then I found out this weekend, I was talking to my editor at ALA, and I've been wanting to do book 2. And she said, go ahead, send me the proposal, because we're going to go on and do book 2. So that's going to be
exciting.
Yeah, so working title, Cinderella's Shoes. It will answer a whole lot of questions I kind of left dangling, just with the hopes that I would get to write book 2.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, so cool. I'm excited about that.
Yeah, so am I. And then I have some, you know, just historical ones that I've been working on, and then in the back of my mind I've got an idea for a Sleeping Beauty, but I'm not quite sure. It's still kind of gelling, and I don't want to talk about it yet.
Right. Yeah, I understand that feeling. Well, I had one last question, and it's just kind of yeah, it doesn't have to do with either of our books. It's just one that I think is fun to ask people. If you could choose a book, well, kind of like my book character does, to fall into and kind of become a part of the story for, you know, a day or two, do you have any idea what book that would be?
I totally do, but I would want more than a day or two because that would be too short.
Yeah.
My all-time favorite book is Anne of Green Gables.
Aww.
And I would be in with, I wouldn't want to be Anne, and I don't think I would want to be Diana. I think I would just like to be friends with them and, you know, be part of their story group. We could be critique partners or something. I don't know. I think Anne would help me a lot with my stories.
Oh, yeah. Oh, that sounds perfect.
Okay, now
I would love
to
that too.
you. What would your story be?
Oh, that's a really difficult question. Yeah, I like to ask people, but answering it is another story.
Yeah, put you on the spot.
Yeah. I guess one of my childhood favorites is, well, it still is one of my favorites, is just the Chronicles of Narnia, and I've always wanted to just be a part of that story, and I think those childhood feelings don't leave very easily. I still kind of have that feeling, so I think I could deal with that. I would love being in Narnia, but you're right, a couple days wouldn't be long enough.
But in Narnia, time is different, right?
That's true. Yes, definitely. Yeah, maybe it would end up being a lifetime. Who knows?
All right, well, just to wrap things up, I think I see we are kind of at our time that we had talked about. What is next for you? Is it too early to ask, or do you have another project on the go?
I have been working on a couple of books, actually. There's one of them I'm done with the first draft, and I went ahead and started on its sequel before I start, you know, editing or revising either of them. So, and like you said, they're kind of new ideas, and I haven't done revisions, so I don't really talk about them a whole lot. I usually wait until I'm completely done before I even start talking, even with family, about them. So, but they're both fantasies too. So for young adults. So yeah, that's what I'm working on now.
Well, that's great. I'm excited to see what you do next. So,
Well,
is there anything else you have to say before we say adios?
Not that I can think of.
I need to learn if it catch you away.
Thank you very much.
Okay, you are welcome. Thank you for coming to Coffee with Authors. First guest ever. We'll see if this becomes a...
Yeah, the guinea pig.
Well, thanks for playing. I appreciate it.
Yeah. Well,
All right.
it was,
So we will maybe
it was
talk
fun.
later.
Thank you.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.